It's not easy being a C-segment competitor. As well as fighting for sales in one of the most competitive sections of the market, you kind of have to be everything to everyone. So, a daily commuter, a family runabout, and a long-distance traveler. And on top of all of that, you have to compete against the Volkswagen Golf. To give you some idea of how tough a job that is, sales figures for June say that for every 7 Golfs that VW sold, Ford sold only one of these, the Focus. But this is the new Focus, and its maker hopes this is the car that will show up its rivals in every way possible. And to that end, they've borrowed some ideas from, well, a lot of people actually. From the front, it's all familiar Focus, but at the back, well, there's a bit of 1 Series, a touch of Citroën, and even a line from the Porsche Panamera. It is a definite departure from the previous Focus, and while it may sound like a not very successful mishmash of ideas, it actually all works. Gone are the C-pillar mounted taillights in favour of a more traditional arrangement, even though the flavour of that tradition is more French than anything else. This is a car with a few different faces. Certain angles give it an avant-garde sort of look. Take a few steps in one direction and it becomes fantastically sporty. A few steps in the other direction will give you the impression that this is a very long car. But it manages to wear all of those faces well, and if nothing else, it makes its competition look a little boring by comparison. When it comes to the interior, it not only beats its rivals, it completely mauls them into submission. Ordinarily, cars in this corner of the market have got interiors that are functional, but this Ford has been taking French lessons. The shapes, the materials, the layout, the spec, it's all more reminiscent of the less popular Citroën C4 than mainstream Golf. At first glance, it may all look like a bit too much, but spend a bit of time in here and you'll find that it works really well. The build quality in the last Focus I drove was a little on the iffy side, but those concerns have disappeared in here. As well as feeling comfortable and cozy, there are more toys than you'd expect at the R266,000 asking price. Electric heated seats, Bluetooth with voice command, USB connected to a decent sound system, keyless entry and operation. The list is substantial in this top-of-the-range GDI Sport, with things included as standard that aren't even options in the competition. You can operate just about everything from the steering wheel, and the 2 full-color LCDs are some of the best available from any manufacturer. There are many buttons and switches, something I'm not normally a fan of, but in here it all sort of makes sense. Interior space is good all round, and there's a decent-sized boot. Powering our test car is a 2-litre 4-cylinder with 125 kilowatts and 202 Newton meters. There is one other engine option for the hatchback, and that's a 1.6-litre petrol. But if you prefer your Focus in a more sedan shape, you will have the option of a 2-litre diesel as well. Not that I can promise that any of those engines are any more exciting than this one. Because this engine isn't exciting, I mean. Given the look of the car and its extensive interior, you'd expect some measure of fantasticness from under the bonnet, but it isn't there. The 2-litre does a good job, but it's just adequate. It's got just enough overtaking power, it's got just enough go. It's not grin-inducing or exciting like the rest of the package. This engine is ordinary, where just about everything else about this car is extraordinary. The good news is that the extraordinary extends to every other part of the drive. The chassis and suspension are well sorted, giving the Focus a comfortable ride that manages to handle just about anything you feel like subjecting it to. This is one of those cars that has a ride setup that completely outstrips the engine's capability, and while that may not mean much to those wanting a daily commuter, it's great news for those who are Focus ST fans. One of the most impressive things about this car is the steering and the front end grip. It reacts quickly and it corners with really good manners, even when you'd expect it to understeer. Ford have paid particular attention to the drivability of this car, and to that end they've fitted an impressive system called torque vectoring, which is basically an electronic system that simulates a limited slip diff, providing more power to the front wheel with more available grip. And when you combine all those things, the chassis, the suspension, the steering and the handling, with a very good 5-speed manual gearbox, you end up with a ride setup that basically erases the engine's shortcomings. Which is a pity, because with just a bit more power, this car would be very good, as opposed to what it is, which is very nice. And that's not the best way to describe anything. It is certainly a strong contender, so if you're looking for a viable alternative to Golf, but aren't yet ready to get married to an Alfa Giulietta, the Focus is jammed with value, and it is a satisfying drive. The output of the Fort's 2-litre unit suggests decent performance with impressively low fuel consumption, but in fact the Focus is only a moderate performer. However, it's great in many other areas. The chassis and suspension especially deliver a smooth, compliant ride, while the equipment list is impressive too.